Could I get a motion, please?
Yes, thanks.
No worries. A motion, please, to go back into regular session. Mike moves. Sarah seconds. All in favor? Okay. All right. First, Selectmen's report. Just a few items today. Let's see. On Friday, July 18th, I had lunch with State Senator Bob Duff, who is also our majority leader. Pretty interesting. I kind of like to talk to him periodically, but particularly this time after the legislative session ended, just to get an update from his perspective. It's always good to get a bipartisan view on what's going on in Hartford. And I've spent a lot of time with Tracy, but I also like to connect with Bob. I've also spent time, albeit less, with State Senator C.C. Marr and State Senator Pat Billy Miller. We appreciate their service and keeping the interests of Darien in mind. But I just want to thank Bob for sitting down with me. We will do it again soon. On July 22nd, I sat down at a lunch and learn with the swap shop team. So kudos to Reese Hutchinson and Susan Cameron and Carolyn Bain and all the others who make the swap shop work. There was quite the crowd there. It included most of the volunteers that support that great organization. All I can pass along is that we have really extraordinary volunteers who take a lot of time out of their lives to help make the swap shop work. The swap shop, I think, is an invaluable part of our community. It gives people a way to repurpose things that they might otherwise have thrown away. And I think that's absolutely terrific. They recycle a ton of stuff in there. And by that, I mean it goes to actually being used by someone else as opposed to being thrown away or even recycled. So again, I really appreciate it. If any of you listening to this have an interest in supporting the swap shop, either through a volunteer work on site or in some other way, please give the Selectman office a call here and we will connect you with the right folks. But swap shop is terrific. Volunteer to help them if you can. On Friday, July 25th, I participated in the annual boat camp. So this is put on over at the Noroton Yacht Club. This thing's fantastic. They get kids from Norwalk and Stamford, bus them in. There's a lot of them. And there's volunteers from all over Darien who bring their boats there and take them to different spots in the area. So Green's Ledge, Lighthouse, over to Ziegler's Cove. I believe there was a pirate ship there. Anyway, they went ARG when I was there, so I knew they were pirates. But it's just a lot of fun to take kids out there and get them some candy and get them out on the water. So I just thank everybody at the Noroton Yacht Club and everybody who's a part of this effort for a really fun afternoon. So thank you for that. That was great. One thing we've talked about in the past is this new service that we've subscribed to called Placer AI. We just got that turned on and have been through the initial training. So I hope in the next couple of meetings to be able to report on some of the findings that are generated from Placer. As a reminder, it's a service that has access to anonymized cell phone location data. And from that data, you can tell a lot about where traffic comes from, where it's going, really all over town, on roads and businesses and parks. And so we're working on some reports now. So I look forward to sharing some of that with all of you and with the public in terms of insights it might give us on where all the people in Darien are coming from. On Thursday, July 31st, last week, I had lunch with Dr. Eric Byrne. So Dr. Byrne is the new interim superintendent of the Darien Public Schools following Dr. Adley's retirement at the end of this past school year. I just wanted to thank him for taking the time to meet with me, which I did on one other occasion. He is very happy to be here. He's fully engaged, and I think anyone listening can have a lot of confidence that we've got excellent interim leadership at the helm. Dr. Byrne is very qualified, and he is already off and running. And I believe his commute is much shorter than it was when he was commuting down to Rye, New York, where he was working before. So he's especially happy about that. But welcome, Dr. Byrne. We are glad to have you. So that's my update for today. Any questions from anybody? Okay. Next up is board liaison reports. Mr. Burke.
The Blight Review Board did not meet in the month of, we were not meeting in the month of August. Our next meeting is in September. When we met in July, we reviewed the 9 properties on our list. We did not have any additional foreclosure recommendations, but that may change after our September meeting.
Okay, terrific. Thank you. Marcy.
The Mental Health Task Force did hold a meeting back in middle of August, I'm sorry, middle of July, and unfortunately I have not gotten an update because I was away. So I will touch base with Allie and get an update on them and report back at our next meeting.
Okay, thank you very much. Sarah.
The mental health task force, Thriving Youth, Darien, apologies, Marcy, I was repeating, and the Henley Homes and Royal Building Committee have not met since. What I did not mention at the last meeting is we have as a viewer tonight, Dennis Maroney, who is the new Board of Education member who was on the Henley Homes and Royal Building Committee. So we welcomed him, as well as Dr. Byrne, the new superintendent. So we were happy to have them, and things are going well. Our next meeting is set for the 20th, Wednesday the 20th at 6 p.m.
Have they been getting all the work done they wanted to get done over the summer? That's gone well?
My understanding is that all work is proceeding on schedule. We've had pretty good weather. So that's my understanding. And right now we are looking at the list of possible things that we can do if we have the construction kind of, I'm sorry, I'm blanking on the word, the budget.
Contingency.
Contingency. Thank you. I apologize. Did not have that word in front of me. Yes. So we are proceeding at a decent rate. And so we're hoping to be able to use those funds to be able to do the extras. So right now they're going to be looking at a list and prioritize. So far, so good.
Thank you for that and all the committee's work. Chris Price, everybody who's been involved in that. It's terrific. I've driven by 2 of the 3 sites in the last week or so, and the pace is frenetic. They are working pretty hard.
They are working very hard. And if you are able to take a drive around and see the additions are really coming to fruition, it's really exciting to see. So we thank everyone for their hard work. Okay,
thank you. And Monica.
Well, we have Great Island on the agenda, but I just want to give an update on 23A. If you remember, we said that the island would be closed during the week once construction really got going, and that is as of today, August 4th. So we'll have some additional signage out there, but the island will be open to residents from 4 p.m. until dusk during the week, and then regular hours, dawn to dusk on the weekend.
And holidays as well, right?
Yes, and that'll stay the way. Yes, and that'll stay that way until further notice.
Okay, terrific. All right, thank you very much. Public comments. Jennifer, do we have any public comments this evening?
So tonight we're a little different, and we have switched over to Zoom webinar because of an increase in Zoom bombing. So for any attendees, if you'd like to give public comments, if you could click on the raise hand icon at the bottom of your screen, we will grant permission to talk. You will not be able to turn on a camera, but you will be able to speak. And Lois Schneider is here to test this out in case no one else wants to give public comment. We'll have her just test the process and make sure it works. And looks like she is the only one. So let's just try this out real quick. All right, Lois, I've given you the ability to talk. Can you unmute yourself?
I did. Thank you for letting me speak. This is a good test. Thanks, Jen, for doing this. I'm pretty excited that it seems to be working just fine. So thank you.
Thank you, Lois.
Okay, public comment. Thank you, Lois. That's great. Anything else, Jennifer, on that? Okay,
yep, that's all.
All right, thanks very much. All right, next up is new business. Discuss and take action on a request to waive bidding requirements for the reskinning of the police boat. I don't know if we have any members of the department here this evening, but over to you, Jennifer.
We do. We have Captain Mastriani here, and he's going to come in as a panelist for this agenda item.
Captain, welcome. Thank you.
Hi, good evening. Sorry, I just switched over right now. How do you hear me?
We hear you fine, thanks.
Okay, so the bid waiver for the reskinning of the boat, Safe Boats, who is actually the manufacturer of our police vessel, is the patent holder and sole source for this type of repair. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with collars and boats. It's a very essential component. It's affixed to the top of the boat. Essentially, it's around the perimeter. It provides the vessel with stability, buoyancy. It protects the hull should it make contact with an object or another boat in close quarters. Inside this collar is a special foam. It's critical that the collar doesn't take on any water and damage the foam. So what they do is that they put a skin. It's like a polyurethane material. It's very durable. They put it around the collar to protect the foam. Over the years, I don't know if you got the pictures, but I did submit pictures with the request. You could see that the collar and it's starting to fade. It's deteriorating and degrading, which could potentially compromise the integrity of the foam that's in the collar. So it is crucial that we get this repair done. I did put it in our capital budget for this fiscal year. I have $31,745 allocated towards it. However, the cost did rise slightly, about $1,200 since the initial proposal that I got last fall. So Jen, I'm sure I'm going to have to do a transfer of some sort if this is approved. But that's where we're at. We'd like to get this done sooner than later, and we respectfully request a bid waiver.
Captain, is that about the right amount of time, sort of 9-10-year life of that before that particular?
That is my understanding. So this is the original skin that's on the boat, and that's dating back to 2015. So, I mean, this boat is in the water 24/7 for emergency services, obviously. So it's got prolonged exposure, probably more than your average boat. So this would certainly buy us another 10 years once we get the new skin applied.
Okay. Well, we've obviously done business with these folks before, and they are the only game in town. So I am okay with a bid waiver on this. Does anyone have any questions for the captain or comments?
No question, just, is this the kind of thing you're gonna have to pull the boat out of the water and it's gonna be out of commission for a little bit of time while it gets done?
Good question. Yes, it's going to be pulled out. We're going to have it towed to police headquarters, and technicians are going to respond to headquarters and conduct work. So it's probably going to be about 3 or 4 days tops that it will be out of service. But I believe we're going to schedule it outside the busy boating season. So
Okay, that was my next question. Would you wait until maybe October to do it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Good.
Yep.
Great question. Anything else?
Yeah, John, just, Captain, so we're not replacing the foam, we're just replacing the skin, is that right?
Correct. There's going to be some foam that we're going to have to replace the outer layer, just because when the skin is removed, some of the foam does come with it. But no, not all the foam. So
Okay.
the collar is going to have to be removed. It's a bit of a project, but yeah, it's just the skin.
Okay, thanks.
You're welcome.
Okay. Other questions? Sarah?
I just wanted to say thank you. You submitted quite a bit of documentation, and I'm very grateful. It makes these decisions much easier, so thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Anything else? All right. Motion to approve the request to waive bidding requirements for the reskinning of the police boat. Sarah moves. Monica seconds. All in favor? Okay. Terrific. Thank you, Captain. I appreciate it. Okay. Next up is to discuss the Great Island Master Plan and next steps. As everyone is aware, the final meeting of the Great Island Committee or Advisory Committee was Wednesday, July 23rd. Again, I just wanted to thank everybody who served on that committee, but particularly Monica for, quite frankly, tireless efforts on that committee in meetings and outside of meetings. It was very much appreciated by all of us. Question is where do we go next? So what's been given to the Board of Selectmen as a recommendation is the master plan. And that was something that the Great Island Committee worked on in concert with Reed Hildebrand and other contractors that they work with to develop over this extended period of time. And so what we have now is a very high quality and very detailed plan that includes really everything we could conceivably do with Great Island. Fortunately, it's broken into phases for us to look at separately, with the early access being the upfront kind of most essential things that we need to get done first, and then a series of base improvements after that, the sum total of which would ostensibly constitute the work and the investment that we might make over this sort of next 5 to 7 year period. So I think as a board, we've got some work to do to dive into this ourselves and to come up with what we want to specifically recommend to the other groups that are going to have to approve this, namely the Board of Finance and RTM for an appropriation, but really for the public too, as they need to be kept informed as this process moves along. For me, the priorities would seem to be in the coming months for us is aligning the early access and base improvements components with budgeting requirements. As you'll recall, I flashed a number of approximately $50 million, which would be the investment that we might contemplate for this sort of first round of post-plan spending on Great Island. What's come in the proposals has been modestly more than that. So we're going to have to go through and really think about what's been recommended in terms of overall budget and consistent with what I'd said earlier. I think the other thing we need to do in the short term is to think through the re-engagement of Green Hildebrand. So when they delivered their master plan on the 23rd, that really marked the end of our first engagement with them. I think engaging them for the second piece of work, if you will, which is going to involve a lot of detailed planning as well as development of bid documents for whatever we end up recommending, is going to take a fair bit of work. And I think having them on board to do that is going to be pretty important. But we do need to go through a proposed scope of work with them and work with them to refine that. And then, of course, get an appropriation sooner rather than later. My sense is we should try to present the retail to brand engagement proposal at the first meeting of the RTM in September so that they can consider that for an appropriation so that retail to brand can get started. A couple other things for me. I do think it'll be time to start thinking about attracting third-party support. Before we start to invest in anything substantial in buildings, those do lend themselves to third-party philanthropy. And so trying to get organized where we could reach out and offer opportunities to do that to third parties will be important. And it'll be at that time that we'll need to think through some governance structures that could accompany that third-party support. I just wanted to thank Pam DeSenchuk. She came to see me the other day. She ran the Darien Foundation for 12 years and had a lot of insights about ways we could think about conservancies or other governance structures, all of which was covered, by the way, in the Reed Hildebrand work that they did concerning governance. So I think we've got a lot of the data that we need to start coming to some conclusions on that, but something we'll want to get started on. And then finally, as I said at the Great Island Committee meeting, it's going to be very important for us to really embark on a big communications effort. I think Reed Hildebrand's work has been excellent, but some of that material is pretty dense and hard for someone who's not involved in the process to really follow everything. So one of the things I want to spend a lot of time on is trying to boil it down and summarize it in such a way that people who don't intensely focus on it can understand at a summary level what's included in the plan, what some of the decisions are before us, what the financial implications of those are, and then next steps and timeline, just laid out in a clear way such that the average person in public, as well as many other elected officials who have responsibility for this but have not been in the weeds in the details, they feel like they've got enough information presented clearly enough so that they can make a decision or weigh in a thoughtful and helpful way. So that's kind of where I see things next. I did want to give everybody else a chance to weigh in, including Jennifer. Maybe I'll hand it to you first, Jennifer, and get the town professionals' perspective from you. What do you think?
The two other areas that come to mind for me that we're going to need to make some decisions is operations and maintenance and events. Right now, the operations and maintenance is pretty bare bones out on the island, managed by DPW. We do have some third-party contractors doing landscaping and that sort of thing. But moving forward, we're going to need an approach for estimating the operation and maintenance costs of any of the proposed improvements, making sure that those are considered as we move forward on which improvements we do. But then also thinking about how do we want to actually oversee the operations and maintenance once the improvements are in place. It could be done directly by the town. It could be handled by third party, some mix of the two. But as soon as parking is out there or there's a restroom, it's really going to increase and change the usage. And we need to make sure that we're able to smoothly transition into a higher level of operations and maintenance out there. And then in regards to events, the Great Island Committee had some conversations about events and what could be done out there, what level of activity there should be. But I think we need to finalize an event policy. Town staff will be required to coordinate with event planners, maybe support the events. So we need to know what that event policy will be so we can determine the support model and what resources are going to be required.
Okay, thank you. Maybe I'll let Monica wrap it up, but Sarah, Marcy, or Mike, are you guys care to weigh in?
Well, I'll let Monica go last to, wrap up. I'm just thinking of what Jen said, and I think some of your comments, John, as we consider an event, policy, I think we want to be cognizant of there might be things to try that seem to work well or don't work particularly well after we try them. So as we consider an event policy, I think we need to be careful that it be an evolving document so it doesn't hamstring us from the consideration of events that might be positive. Some things you don't know until you try. So that's just an overarching thought I had in terms of events. And then as it relates to structuring going forward, I think it's going to take a lot of consideration as we consider what we do versus what it will, cost, which are the must-have maintenance costs. And I know this is in the plan, but just for the general public to understand and weigh in on, because we'll be making significant financial decisions concerning some of the aspects of this island before perhaps we have third-party commitments. So I think we really need to think hard about all of these matters and our steps in a very careful manner, and I'm sure that we will.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Just to highlight one point you made about the event policy, I really do think the right word is kind of evolving document, just like you said, because we really don't know much about what's going to happen. I think we need to run a few experiments and try some things, see how they work, see what issues come up, and then allow our policy to evolve. I think one commitment we can make, we're just not going to have events on the island that are, terribly disruptive. I mean, people at concerts for thousands of people, we're just not doing any of that. So to the residents who live in that area, we will take those concerns seriously. At the same time, we do want to run some test cases with a few events, and let's see how it goes. We'll learn from that, and we'll over time shape a policy that really should work for everyone. Marcy.
So my question is more about kind of the governance going forward. So if we're disbanding the committee tonight, and I'm sure we'll talk about this in the next line item, there's going to have to be someone or some organizations that's responsible for making any of the decisions going forward. What are the thoughts on going and doing that? Like an events policy, who's making that choice? Who's going to write the events policy? Are we thinking of putting together another commission that's going to continue to run Great Island, or is this going to go under the umbrella of the Board of Selectmen, who's going to be making those decisions? That's kind of where my question is now, as we're moving from one stage to the next stage, to make sure that, the governance doesn't certainly take over the Board of Selectmen and that the right people are making the decisions going forward.
Great question. Monica and I have talked about it. I'll hand that over to Monica. And, you want to jump in here? You're on mute.
Sorry, 25 cents for every time somebody says that, right? Sarah, do you want to go before me?
I think I was just going to follow through on Marcy's thread about governance. My piece would be more financial and understanding and transparency. I think going forward, trying to understand the structure and who's making the decisions and who'll be submitting any kind of financial request through to the Board of Selectmen, I assume, and then through the Board of Finance, but also how are we keeping track? And I would ask if this is not going to be kept under our Parks and Rec line item, that it would be a line item that would be in our budget so that the costs would be transparent.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. I think what John said earlier was really helpful, and that is, if you look at the master plan, you'll see that it is laid out in phases, and it took 1 year to put together this document, but it's going to take, I would suggest, decades for us to really make significant changes on there. So this early access phase is simply to allow residents to actually get on the island and be able to park and use a bathroom, walk on a trail, that kind of thing. Marcy, your question was going forward, how do we as a Board of Selectmen approach this? And the committee did some good legwork background work on creating a skeleton for this early activities project. This is, I think there's, it's going to be a lot of work, but I don't know if, I'll let John weigh in. I don't think it's something that we need to form a new committee on. I think that we have construction going on right now that's going to take us easily into the end of the year. Probably, when we get done with landscaping, we'll probably be looking at spring of next year, right, when 23A is done. And then this early access part, that's going to take some time to get through all of the regulatory officials, and then the construction will probably take a year. So what the committee looked at as far as the early activities idea was to keep it very minimal during this period of time when we don't have parking and we do have a lot of construction going on. So I would suggest that the Board of Selectmen, probably with Jen's help, and Linda and Karen, I'm sure, could probably work on putting together some sort of policy. We have had people ask specifically about weddings. So I would suggest that for anybody that's thinking about a wedding, in the next year, that we probably won't have a policy put together solid that will be able to speak to a larger group. So if that's something people are thinking of, then I think that our number for early activities, Mike, I think it was 20 to 75 maybe. So, but it's something the committee will think about. And I agree that the whole governance structure will have to be, so there are a lot of pieces that we need to take a look at, but we have time, right? The island isn't going anywhere. We have time, and we have time to do this right.
My concern is I just want to make sure is hypothetically somebody sends in an application in October that they want to do some kind of event in Great Island, and it's 40 people or whatever it is. I just want a policy to make sure that there was a joint decision on what this event is. I don't want it to be somebody who made that decision in a silo. John says, oh yeah, sure, you can throw that down there. And I'm sure that this is not the way Darien governance works, but I do want to make sure that each one of us, or there is a group that makes that decision, and it is approved in a process as if they were doing a road race, as if they were doing an event at one of the schools, that there is a committee that looks at this and decides whether this is appropriate, and not just one or two single people.
No, go ahead, John.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I mean, one of the features of our event policy is going to be how an application is selected,
Yep.
say for when we have multiple applications for the same time frame. And to your point, it can't just be me. It can't be one or two people. It can't be Jennifer. That really needs to be a a decision that's made through a defined process. And so one of the things the event policy is going to lay out is what is that process. That's why I agree with Monica. We've had some recent requests for weddings for next summer, but you know what? In a way, it's a little bit unfair because what I'd rather do is have an announcement by this board that says, okay, the event guidelines are finished. We're going to publish them as of X date. Starting that date, we will be taking applications for events. So what happens is everybody sees that, it's publicized in advance. There's a go date, like reservations for a new restaurant. Then everybody can submit an application, and then we will have a process for deciding which ones get picked for whatever dates we've got. So what I don't want to do is, a few people are thinking, well, maybe we could get something in now. That's not really fair to the other people who are waiting to actually have an event policy developed. So my recommendation is consistent with Monica's. Until we have that in place, we can't go forward. The good news is the Great Island Committee did work on some draft materials for that. So we're going to start with that. But I think with some tweaking, we can probably get something that works well from that starting point. As to your other question, Monica, or Marcy, which I think is a good one about governance going forward, keep in mind the Great Island Committee was tasked with something enormous, which was to come up with a master plan and work with a series of very competent professionals to come up with that. We actually have everything in place now to where we don't need to come up with a plan. We need to decide on the plan. And that's not something I think we can effectively outsource. We have all the math we need. We have all the options we need. We need to sort through it and come up with some recommendations to the other boards as to what we want to have appropriated. So I think we're in the right position now to both decide that as well as decide the event guidelines, both of which are ultimately our call in terms of what gets put out. So I think until we get something that's going to require a much more substantive involvement, we probably don't need another committee. My vision was that the next committee would probably be a building committee, but let's play it by ear and just see if something else comes up. The other thing I would stress is that, as Jennifer mentioned, there's a lot of town work that's going to start once Great Island starts to have real access. So, and also with event management, somebody's got to be the town counterpart to anybody who wants to do an event. And we've got to figure out what that solution is. And so Jennifer is going to play a much more visible role in the process, and she'll be right there alongside us in terms of her oversight of town professionals to help make sure that part of the equation is well represented. So she'll be spending a lot more time on this as well.
Okay, so just so I'm clear and for the public to be clear, at this point, Great Island is not hosting any events until we've come up with an event policy and publicize it to the constituents in town.
Correct, and we will do
Okay.
that as soon as possible. In fact, we're going to have Great Island as a standing component of our agendas going forward. And agenda item number 1 at the next meeting is going to be the event policy.
Perfect. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Sure. Other comments? Okay. All right, so more to come on that. Our next agenda item is the discussion of the Great Island Committee and discuss the rest of my agenda. Discussion of the Great Island Committee itself and disbanding that committee. So we need to make a decision on that. To decommission the Great Island Committee. Jennifer or Monica? Monica, you want to touch on that?
I just want to say, you know what, John, you've said it so many times, this town runs on volunteers, we're volunteers here, but this was a really super dedicated, smart group that worked really hard, push your sleeves up, anything and everything that we had to take a look at, even some things that we maybe preferred to not have spent so much time on, but we still tackled it. Everybody was very professional. And again, the dedication was really high. So I want to thank first I want to thank our elected officials, Mike Burke, Lori Bora, Jim Palin, and Mark Adaletta. They all are very active in town government in other areas. And I want to thank the individual residents. We had, I think we did, you guys, 48 interviews, if I remember correctly, and we chose 4 people. And we, not that the other 44 weren't wonderful, they were, but we really landed on 4 great volunteers. Jeff Table, Dan Kolakowski, Kip Vesey, and
Bruce Ferguson.
And Bruce Ferguson. 4 terrific people that spent hours and hours and hours working on this committee. So while I am a little sad that the committee is being disbanded, going to be straight here, couldn't have asked for a better group to work with. So much appreciation from me personally.
Yeah, the other thing I'd say is just to repeat what I said at the end of the Great Island Committee meeting. So what's going away is the structure. So the agendas, the long meetings, the minutes, the preparation, all of that. That's actually what's going away. What's not going away is the involvement of the Great Island Committee members. So their input into the process will remain invaluable. I hope that some of them will serve on building committees as we move forward. But in any case, all of those folks are well versed in all of this. 2 of the committee members sit on this board. And so we're going to continue to hear from those members as well as from the public going forward. It just feels like the right phase, the phase that we're in right now, which is deciding on all the work that was done. It feels like the responsibility of the Board of Selectmen, and that we don't need another committee to help us sort through and make those decisions. We just need to make them. But the minute we get to a critical mass of work that really feels like it lends itself to a committee, we will constitute one.
I could just piggyback onto that, John. We on the committee who are the electeds, it's kind of part and parcel of being an elected sometimes to step up and do some of these extra sorts of things. But the 4 citizens that helped us, they come from diverse professional backgrounds, and their expertise was invaluable. And I feel that they've expressed to me that they take the island now personally, but as well they should. It's almost like a child of theirs that they've started to bring along. So I'm glad to hear that we will actively look to have them on building committees and continue in the loop with the island as we can, because their contributions were significant. And also, these are folks who I don't think any of them really had ever volunteered in town for any kind of roles before. And we're always talking about, building benches, and they would be terrific people, each one of them, to continue to help serve the town. And I'm sure they would be anxious to do that.
I'm glad we didn't scare them away. That's the main thing, but it's just a reminder that town service is great. If you really think you have time for something like that, there's all kinds of ways to contribute. So, okay, other comments? Okay, could I get a motion, please, to decommission with profound thanks to all involved, the Great Island Advisory Committee? Okay, Marcy moves. Sarah seconds, all in favor? Okay, unanimous. Thank you. And thank you again to all the commission members. We know where you live and we have your contact information. We will be tracking you down. Okay, next item is an update on payment applications and parking. You'll recall that we've embarked on a couple of efforts to try and streamline how things are done here at Town Hall. One of them has to do with how citizens pay for services here at Town Hall. This can range from H stickers and dump stickers to dog licenses, parking passes, all of those things where you have to come to Town Hall or you have to send Town Hall a check to do that. Our vision is to create an application that's both mobile phone based as well as online on the town website that makes it easier for folks to pay for these services and also to confirm their residency. Right now, you're having to mail copies of utility bills and all of that. There's a better way to do that, to upload it and manage it in such a way that you can do this remotely and get the services that you need from Town Hall much, much more easily. We've been engaged in discussions with a couple of application developers who are helping us understand the process that they use and how they could help us develop these applications. It's really quite impressive, the type of thinking and questions that they go through to understand our needs and then to develop something that's not just with a clear front end that's easy for everyone to use, but that integrates seamlessly into our back-end accounting system. So I've got a lot of confidence in the two groups that we've heard from, and I'm hope to bring a proposal and a decision to the board at the hopefully the next meeting, if not the meeting right after that. But we're going to have that underway and fairly soon. Good news is I think all this can be done at surprisingly reasonable cost. So I feel good about that, but more to come. On the parking, you'll recall that the mission for this is twofold. To one, clarify our signage, which is a little bit of a jumble of old and new signs all over town, but also help us figure out a way to get rid of hanging tags that the permit holders use in our parking lots. We've made a lot of progress on this. All the new signage is drafted. We need to go through a couple other reviews, but I think you'll find the signs indicating lots and where you can and can't park at what times will be crystal clear when we're finished with this sign remake. In terms of the permits themselves, we've spent a lot of time lately on plate readers and how they work with current enforcement, and we've made a lot of progress in terms of getting to the point where we can surrender those. I don't know that we'll have it done in time for the renewals that are about to go out in the next 30 days, but we are working on it, and more news to come. So that's the update on payment applications and parking, unless anybody has any questions. Last item for new business is to discuss and take action to approve the settlement of several tax appeals that were presented to us. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to read the settlement case. I will give you the town's original valuation and then the proposed settlement amount, and we'll have a vote for each one of those for the public's information. All these were discussed at length in executive session, and we appreciate town council's help in negotiating these. So the first one is for multiple. This is a proposed settlement. This is for Wells Fargo Bank versus the town of Darien, a tax appeal for 11 Center Street. We have a second one for Wells Fargo Bank, a tax appeal for 5 Center Street, a third one for an appeal for 938 Boston Post Road, and the fourth and last one for an appeal for 950 Boston Post Road. The total assessed value for the fair market properties for all of those properties as of October 2023 was $8,320,000. If I get down, and let's see if I read through all these. Hold on. The plaintiffs provided an appraisal for all 4 properties that they had, which totaled $3,500,000. The plaintiff proposed a settlement between those two of $5,664,200. So an original value of $8,320,000 and a proposed settlement value of $5,664,200. Questions or comments on that? Could I get a motion to approve the Wells Fargo Bank settlement as I have read? Okay, Marcy moves. Sarah seconds. All in favor? Okay, unanimous. Next one up is the proposed settlement for Blackshaw Criscott LLC versus the town of Darien. Tax appeal for 13 Grove Street. The original valuation was $3,792,700. The proposed settlement is for $3,200,000. Could I get a motion to approve that tax appeal? Mike moves. Sarah seconds. All in favor? Thank you. Next one up, proposed settlement for the Kings Highway Tennis Club LLP versus the town of Darien. This is a tax appeal for 86 Old Kings Highway North. Town's original valuation, fair market value, was $5,894,300 with a proposed settlement of $5,400,000. Could I get a motion to approve the Kings Highway Tennis Club tax appeal settlement? Mike moves. Sarah seconds. All in favor? Just a few more. This is a proposed settlement for John C. Seitz et al. Versus the town of Darien for 207 Long Neck Point Road, and John C. Seitz et al. Versus the town for a tax appeal for 209 Long Neck Point Road. For 207 Long Neck Point Road, the original valuation was $4,060,800. The proposed settlement is $3,850,000. And then for 209 Long Neck Point Road, the original valuation was $11,294,600. The proposal is for $10,700,000. Could I get a motion to approve settlements for the tax appeal for 207 and 209 Long Neck Point Road? Marcy moves. Mike seconds. All in favor? Okay. Two more. This one is a proposed settlement for Equity One LLC versus the Town of Darien, a tax appeal for 430 Boston Post Road. Original valuation was $14,900,400 with a proposed settlement of $14,500,000. Could I get a motion to approve Equity One LLC proposed tax appeal? Mike moves. Sarah seconds. All in favor? Okay. And the last one, a proposed settlement for Virtus LCB Darien LLC versus the Town of Darien, tax appeal for 1 Parklands Drive. The town's original revaluation was $45,859,400 with a proposed settlement of $39,300,000. Could I get a motion to approve the 1 Parkland Drive tax settlement? Sarah moves. Mike seconds. All in favor? Okay. That wraps up our tax appeal. Jennifer, did I miss anything there?
No, I think you got them all.
Okay, terrific. Thank you. Okay, and some old business update on the Cherry Lawn information request. Sarah, thanks for your work on all this. Do you have a quick comment or update on that?
I just wanted to thank you for taking the time, as well as with Jen Tarneski and Jen Fava, to meet with myself and with Jenny Schwartz last week. We had a good conversation discussing the traffic study in light of the needs, particularly regarding safety, which we feel is very important. We did have a conversation about the timing of this and seeing if we could possibly delay it all. I had a conversation with John about this recently. John, I don't know if you want to talk about the timing or how to move forward on this.
Yeah, I think there's real value in what Sarah, as well as Jenny Schwartz and others, have raised in terms of a question, which is to try to get some additional clarity on the operational aspects of our parks, and particularly Cherry Lawn, before we move forward with something like a traffic study. Keep in mind that this study is going to be part of taking a look at a park that's been set up this way for decades. It's been this way for a long time. So I think the first thing to conclude is there's not a ton of urgency with regard to this. I would further say, as we've discussed in the past, that we're in the process of having an audit of the town's Americans with Disabilities Act compliance. And we were one of the first towns in the West Cog to actually benefit from this audit. All the other towns are going to get theirs as well. And this is a great tool to help each town get a handle on the ADA compliance areas where improvements could be made. So there's certainly some of those for the town, and some of them are going to be in Cherry Lawn Park. So I think actually having clarity on both the sort of data and programming requests that you and Jenny have had, Sarah, as well as the recommendations of that audit with regard to ADA compliance, I think we're going to need to take all of that into account to come up with a single package of things that we might consider for Cherry Lawn. But the good news is that there's not going to be urgency on this. I do think that focus on safety, of course, will remain a concern for everybody. So if we do see something that lends itself to a quick improvement that would help with safety before we address some of these other things, we certainly will consider that. But making sure that we've got all the various puzzle pieces pulled together before we embark on something like this feels like a good approach going forward. There won't be undue delay, but I think spending some time on it now will make sense.
Thank you, John. And I also think that the Placer AI data, as you've mentioned, will also be helpful to understand some of the volume of folks that are coming in. So I appreciate your time.
Yep.
And I appreciate the time for Jen Fava and Jen Tarneski as well. I know this is a lot of work, as well as the Parks and Rec Commission. So thank you.
Terrific. Okay. All right. We've got a few transfers to work on. So first one is to discuss and take action on a fiscal 2026 request to transfer $13,000 to police professional services for testing. Jennifer.
Captain Mastriani is coming in as a panelist for this one.
Oh, terrific. Captain, welcome back. It's been so long. Nice to have you again, sir. We would hear you a lot better if you were not on mute. Captain, are you there? There you are.
Yep.
sorry about that.
No worries. Go ahead.
So I don't know if you guys recall, but last fall I came to you for a transfer. Same thing. It was for a sergeant's promotional examination process. This time around, we have a lieutenant vacancy. So this past May, one of our lieutenants retired. This was rather unexpected. Our police commission did approve to fill the vacancy, just like what we did last fall with our sergeant vacancy. We would like to go with Batch Quest again as the vendor to administer the examination. In the little booklet with the proposal, as you can see, they're a very reputable public safety consultant company. They service a number of police and fire agencies throughout Connecticut and Massachusetts. Like I mentioned before, the lieutenant vacancy for this fiscal year was not projected, which is why it's not in the budget. So we are requesting to transfer the $13,000, which is the total cost of the examination process, from our patrol full-time salary account to our professional services account. Reason why we're using the full-time salary account is because currently we have a couple vacancies in patrol. So we got some unspent full-time salaries.
Okay. We certainly have worked with these folks in the past and for quite some time. So this is a normal thing that comes up when there is a vacancy. Does anyone have any questions for the captain? Okay. Could I get a motion, please, to approve a request to transfer $13,000 to police professional services for testing? Sarah moves. Monica seconds. All in favor? Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Captain, thanks.
Thank you.
All right. Next up is discuss and take action on a fiscal year 2025 request to transfer $180,345 to town council for fiscal 2025 expenditures. Jennifer.
Now that we've closed out the year, we've paid our final bill to our attorneys, and we are over budget in our town council line by just over $180,000. We did have some funds left in regulatory council, $34,000 there, labor council, $2,500. So we're requesting to move those to our town council along with $143,000 from contingency. We had some significant expenses for tax appeals, which you just approved a significant number. Total for this year was about $185,000. Comparatively, last year it was $41,000. And then we have a significant pedestrian easement case, which was about $125,000. 2 tree appeals that total about $78,000, and then our blight matters and foreclosures have totaled about $55,000 to date.
Comments or questions on this?
Hey, Jen, I have a question. On the tree appeals, was that the 23A lawsuits that were brought up against the town? And so that's what cost the $78,000 and change? Okay, thank you.
So that 78,000 change, that's what we spent to defend those 2 lawsuits over those trees on 23A?
Correct.
Okay.
And just with regard to the blight matters and foreclosures, our council will be making applications for recoupment of those fees, right? Because our attorney for the foreclosure cases, attorney's fees can be awarded. So our attorneys will be making that application and presumably not charging us or something. So we have to pay more money to council in order to recoup money we've already paid to them?
Yes, and then also in addition to that, when the case is settled, whether through foreclosure or some other means, we will be receiving the payment of the blight funds that are liened on the property.
Okay. Thank you.
Plus the blight fines that are associated with this or with these cases where there has been a foreclosure are non-trivial. So we will hopefully recoup that. I believe also in the pedestrian easement case, we're likely requesting reimbursement for those legal fees as well. So that we're having to spend this money now as a cash matter, but with some effort and and favorable rulings, we may be able to recoup some of all that. So other questions on this transfer? Okay, could I get a motion, please, to approve the transfer request of $180,345 to town council for fiscal 2025 expenditures and recommend that to the Board of Finance? Sarah moves, Mike seconds, all in favor? Great, thank you. All right, next up, discuss and take action on a fiscal 2025 request to transfer the $98,636 surplus in the paramedic services to Board of Finance contingency. Jennifer.
This is a little unusual for a couple of reasons. First one being, in all the time that I've been here, we have never had a surplus in this account. We only spent about $6,000 on paramedic services. And just to refresh your memory, we have a contract with Stanford EMS to provide paramedic services for advanced life support, and we guarantee them a certain amount of dollars. They are, any billings that Post 53 collects on get remitted to Stanford EMS, and then the town pays the difference between the contractual amount and what was collected. This year we only had to pay $6,000. In the past, it ranged $80,000 to about $100,000, or a little bit more than that. Call volume was up, collection rates were up, and percentage of calls that were billed to commercial insurance were up. So all of those resulted in higher collections, which reduced what the town had to pay. So as a result, we have a $98,000 surplus in that account, but what I'm requesting to do is move it to the contingency account because it will be needed elsewhere in the budget. Rather than transfer from paramedic services to wherever else it's needed in the budget, I'd like to put it into contingency and then distribute it from there so that in future years we can easily see where we had to transfer other funds to, and running it all through contingency makes it easier to research that.
And it's the case that even with this transfer, you're not going to have enough to cover draws on contingency to close out fiscal 25?
It's possible, because after that legal transfer, we're down to $20,000. This 98 will put us up to about 119, but the very next transfer that you see has 35,000 coming out of contingency. So we do have some other significant surpluses elsewhere in the budget, so we may do this again in order to be able to redistribute those.
And could you explain what you've got written in here where you like these to go through the Board of Finance contingency for tracking purposes? In other words, you're proposing we pull these surpluses, run them through contingency, clear the accounts with deficits through that. What's the reason that you like to do that?
That way, all of the inter-department transfers are going to run through one account. So down the road, when we say, how many interdepartmental transfers do we have? What dollar amount? We can just pull up the contingency account and see $200,000, $300,000, whatever it was that was needed to cover overruns in other departments because they couldn't cover it internally. It's just a much easier and quicker research rather than combing through all of the accounts and see, oh, EMS went to DFD and to finance. Having it all run through one account is just easier.
Got it. Okay. All right. Any other questions on this transfer?
No, just Jen. So when we do the budget next year, I guess you'll take this into account when you plug this number in, huh?
Yeah, for the 26 budget, we only had 2 quarters of data, and it was really surprising because it was such a drop in what the town's payment was, and we weren't comfortable saying based on 2 quarters that it was really a trend.
Right.
But for the year, it proved to be a trend, and by the next budget, we'll have another 2 quarters, so we'll really be able to see if this really is a new norm for those collections.
Okay.
Other questions? Okay, could I get a motion to approve transfer of $98,636 in surplus paramedic services to the Board of Finance contingency and recommend that to the Board of Finance? Monica moves, Sarah seconds, all in favor? Great. Thank you. And last transfer, discuss and take action on a fiscal 2025 request to transfer $35,000 to the registrar's of voters, seasonal and temporary, for early voting. Jennifer.
As you know, early voting was new this fiscal year, and the registrars for the November election incurred a very significant amount of payroll to man those early voting days, and they were able to cover a small amount of it internally, but they can't cover the remaining 35,000. So we're requesting that come from contingency, and if this is approved, that'll bring the contingency down to just over $84,000.
Okay. Any questions on that transfer for registrars of voters? One thing, just to be clear, they don't typically budget for primary elections, and so we just do a transfer if that comes up. Otherwise, they're typically not included in budgets. Okay. Could I get a motion, please, to approve the transfer of $35,000 to registrars of voters for seasonal and temporary for early voting? I recommend that transfer to the Board of Finance. Sarah moves. Marcy seconds. All in favor? Great. Thank you. Okay, we've got a few appointments to go through. So there is the 5 Mile River Commission. This is a commission that sort of jointly oversees, if we will, 5 Mile River, as it is eponymously named, word of the day. And that includes members from both Darien and from Norwalk. The appointments for this actually go to the RTM. So there are a couple individuals as part of our committee appointment cleanup process that we will like to recommend for reappointment. The first one is to recommend to the RTM the reappointment of Craig Jung to the 5 Mile River Commission, and also the reappointment of Wim Jessup to the 5 Mile River Commission. Just as an FYI, meeting with the chairman of that commission, Matt Marion, I think this week, if not next week, to talk about the commission's work and whether we could be of assistance to them. They do operate independently in terms of oversight of all that. It's not something that the town budgets for or provides any direct feedback or input to, other than the appointment of these individuals who are long serving. Does anyone have any questions? Okay, could I get a motion to reappoint Craig Jung to the 5 Mile River Commission? Mike moves. Sarah seconds. All in favor? And then second, to reappoint William Jessup to the 5 Mile River Commission. Okay. Mike moves. Sarah seconds. All in favor? Okay, thank you. All right, last reappointment. In addition to serving on the Police Commission, Commissioner Kevin Cunningham has been a member of the Southwest Regional Communications Center, or CMED, Board of Directors. I believe those are the folks who provide us some, now I'm drawing a blank. This is Dispatch, thank you. So dispatch services, so it's late. Dispatch services, we've been very well served by having Kevin's voice as part of that board, and I would enthusiastically recommend his reappointment before he decides he has too much on his plate. But we do appreciate Kevin's help with that. Anyone have any questions about that reappointment?
No, we thank him for his service. He's
a star,
well suited.
Sure. Could I get a motion to reappoint Kevin Cunningham to the Southwest Regional Communications CMED Board of Directors? Marcy moves. Sarah seconds. All in favor? Great. Okay, thank you. All right, just about done. We need to review and approve the minutes for the July 22nd regular meeting. I have read through them and did not have any comments. Does anyone have any edits or comments for those minutes? Could I get a motion, please, to approve the July 22nd minutes? Mike moves. Marcy seconds. All in favor? Great. Thank you. All right, a couple of things on agenda review. Noroton Heights development update. Most folks are interested in the traffic improvement around that. They are making good progress, and we expect to have some of the retail opened in September, as well as some of the apartments occupied. So they're very close to getting to what I would call regular business over there. Mm-hmm. Hopefully you've seen some of the landscaping work that's been done. I'll see if I can get maybe Jeremy to give us a quick and further update on just what's going to be opened up there, and then Ed to comment on the timing for the, not just the signal replacement on Hollow Tree Ridge, but the paving on Hollow Tree Ridge and on Heights Road. So more to come on that. I haven't managed to get that done. We've also talked about some yard signs and policy enforcement on that. there's more to that. I am working on making sure we've got a not just an articulate policy that's behind that people can follow, but also a way for us to publicize that so people follow those guidelines. I think part of the problem I'm discovering is that, as my own ignorance of the exact rules in that regard demonstrate, there's not good understanding of what that policy is. And so a lot of folks are putting out signs. And what I found is they were just not aware that there was a particular policy for that. So I think it's less actually a cleanup of the policy. It's pretty clear. It's much more coming up with a plan to communicate that. And I think that'll reduce infractions on that policy if we do that. So give me another meeting or so to address that. And then finally, the left turn lane at Noroton Avenue on Ledge Road. We had some meetings last week with some attorneys involved in that, and that was a very positive discussion. I think we're going to get to a clarity as to what's next. Good news is that the deadline for that grant has been advanced forward, so we're not at risk of losing that. But I'm hopeful by next meeting or two of the Board of Selectmen, we'll have a plan that we can present that is definitive or more definitive on timing as to when that work would start. As a reminder, that's the intersection of Ledge Road going into Noroton Avenue. And that's a real backup, particularly on weekends, because we don't have a turn lane. The engineering's been proposed to put in a turn lane that we think will make a really big difference in traffic there. So we will get that started as soon as possible. But let's leave all three of these items on agenda review before we take them off. So as a reminder, upcoming meetings, our next one 2 weeks from now, August 18th, will be a Zoom meeting, but we will resume in-person meetings after Labor Day. So on September 8th, we will be back in person in room 206 for the Board of Selectmen. That's all we have on the agenda. Anything else for the good of the order? Thank you, friends. Could I please get a motion to adjourn? Okay, Mike moves, Sarah seconds. All in favor? We stand adjourned. Thanks, everybody. Have a good night.